welcome back to our channel. So obviously from the title, this is going to be a 3-month book review of all the books that I've read. I actually looked at my last video and it's actually now 4 months, and when I took out all the books that I've read in that time frame, well, let's just say you're gonna be here for a very long time. But I'm gonna go through it very quickly, just give you a brief summary of the storyline, like my thoughts on it, and then move along. I'm also gonna show you the books that I'm reading now and what is still on my bookshelf for me to still read throughout the year. So yeah guys, let's get started. First off is Black Sunday by Tola Rutumi Abraham, and it is a Nigerian author, and it is about 2 twin sisters along with their younger brothers Peter and Andrew, and their life growing up in Lagos, Nigeria. They grew up in this like really comfortable lifestyle because their mother has this really cozy job in politics, and unfortunately she was retrenched, and so they ended up kind of like going into poverty. So both the mother and father left them with their grandmother, just left them to fend for themselves. So it tells a tale of their life growing up, now then going into adulthood, and what it's like to live in Nigeria itself. The aspects of life like poverty, starvation, religion that plays such a big role in that country itself, and how it connects. And I didn't quite enjoy it the way I thought I would have. It obviously talks a lot about what is happening in Nigeria itself. It had a storyline, it did have a storyline, but it didn't have that development I wanted at the end. I think it just felt a little flat towards the end, but overall I really did enjoy it. Case in Waiting by Becky Talia, I don't know, sorry. This is the first book I've read of this author, so I know she has other books as well, and it talks about Kate and Anderson, who are the bestest of friends, but Anderson is gay, and they both have this crush on this guy that they met at camp, and then they start their senior year, and all of a sudden this crush comes to their school and he gets transferred, and so they're trying to navigate their friendship, but also the fact that they both like this boy so much and what's happening now. So it is so funny because also they are in theater together, so they all three are in like drama session, and it is funny, it is sad sometimes because they're fighting, they're friends, they're best friends, they share everything with each other, and now they're in this place where they can't really share their feelings with one another. There's also a guy that has a crush on Kate, and it's so funny how he acts. It just reminds me of high school all over again. But I really enjoyed this wholesome book. I think it is fun, it is definitely a YA, it's romance, it talks about friendship and love and family. Evie Drake starts over by Linda Holmes, and let me tell you, the amount of times that I walked past this book in the bookshop, I can't tell you. Every time I saw the cover I was like, the cover looks nice, but is it a really good book? Because I've been burnt before by this. So I saw a book Instagrammer who talked about this book and she loved it, and I was like, okay, I'm going back, I'm buying the book. So it's about Evie, and Evie is literally on her way of leaving her household. She's leaving her husband, she's leaving her entire life. As she's packing her suitcase into the bag, she gets a phone call. Her husband passed away in a car accident, and so she is sitting with these emotions of like, I was about to leave my husband has now died, I live in a small community where everyone adores my husband so much. She's now trying to navigate the fact that people keep sympathizing or saying they're so sorry for her loss, but meanwhile they didn't know what was happening behind closed doors because she was actually emotionally abused by her husband, but nobody knew about that. So she is literally starting her life over. She finds a guy, she is deciding to move up and take charge of her life, and I really enjoy Evie's character. She is so funny. I think this book is hilarious. It's also about, again, emotional abuse. They talk about that, and it's about friendship because she has such a great friendship with one of these guys. It's about love. It is about just like what it's like to live in a small town, and like what kind of happens in a small town like that. Such a Fun Age by Kelly Reed, and this takes place when Emery, or it directs about Emery, I don't know. She is a black nanny at a party, and her client, one of her clients calls to say that she has an emergency at home, like can she come over to come and look after one of the kids while they deal with this incident. So she comes over, she's dressed obviously in like party attire. Let time pass by, she takes the 5-year-old to the supermarket and sort of waste time there, and as she is letting time go by, the security guard then comes up and thinks that she had kidnapped the girl, because what is a black woman doing with a white child? And so there's a lot of commotion going on, and instead of making a huge scene, she calls the father, and the father ends up coming to deal with the situation. As this is going on, guy videotapes the entire scenario or the situation that's happening, and he says, I can literally put this now, I can tell people like what happened, like this was so wrong, and she's like, just leave this whole thing, whatever. But her employer Alex, she ends up finding out about this whole thing. She thinks it's so wrong, she wants to like correct it, and it ends up being like a whole mess. She ends up being so invested in like her life, in the nanny's life and what she does, and she's like this white woman trying to fix everything, and you just can't do that. And so she goes behind her back and does all of this thing. But I had issues with this book. Like, first and foremost, it was way too stereotypical. The way black people or people of color are portrayed is almost as if all they can do is talk slang, all they do is like dressing like slutty clothes. Like, the author kept emphasizing healthcare as if like healthcare is so important and only white people can help you get out of the situation. It was very troublesome. Like, I don't know how this book got so much hype. It has so many holes in here, and it is just not a book that I would recommend for people of color, because this book will frustrate the shit out of you. This is probably one of my favorite books of 2021, and it's called Mixtape by Jane Sanderson, and it is about Daniel and Allison's relationship when they were younger and how they fell in love with mixtapes. I think it was in the, I want to say in the 80s. They both come from different family households. Allison comes from a household where her mother is an alcoholic, whereas Daniel comes from like sort of like a steady middle class household. You know, he's got a sister and a mother and a father who works, and they're kind of normal. And so the two of them are in a relationship, but things in her household ends up being quite a situation where her elder brother says, rather just leave for your safety, just go create a new life somewhere else. A few years later, they both have their own lives. Daniel has like a companion with a child. Allison is married, she becomes this like best-selling author. Somehow, I can't quite remember, but he ends up Daniel finds on Twitter, and he sends her one of these mixtape songs that he like remembers, and they end up like DMing each other about like all the songs that they listened to when they were younger, and so they form like a relationship again. I must say, I don't condone adultery, but for this fictional book it made sense. And it's definitely about love and relationship and the love for music. Oh my word, like this was nostalgia wrapped up in a book. But I really enjoyed the concept and the plot and the character development, and I just love the relationship between Allison and Daniel, and just the mixture with music in it, with like your cassette. Oh, it was a vibe. I really enjoyed this book. I need to have these two books together, because holy crap, is this a romance novel that I have ever come across. So this is the book I would recommend reading first, and then you read The Bright Day. So I did these two the other way. The Kiss Quotient I did in 5 hours, because it was so steamy and sexy and filthy, but I was here for it. I felt the emotions of it. So the Kiss Quotient is about Stella, and parents keep asking like, when are we gonna have grandkids? And she's like, oh my gosh, like she just does not know how to be a girlfriend. She doesn't know how to be in bed like sexually, and so she hires Michael, who's this escort, and she says, listen, you need to teach me how to be good in bed. And he was like, oh, like what are you talking, like what the hell? And she's like, I'll pay you all all this money, help me. As they have their first date, she's like, you know what, I actually suck at being in a relationship, so teach me what it's like to be a girlfriend, like a girlfriend and a boyfriend in a relationship. And he's like, this is the most craziest thing ever, but he goes through it because at the end of the day, his family situation isn't great either, but the two of them just form the most loving relationship. I had to read this book without my husband present. That's how steamy this book was. Highly recommend if you are a romance fan. So the next one, The Bride Test, which is also by Helen Hong. I don't think I mentioned the author's name, but The Bride Test is Michael's cousin, Kai, and he's also autistic, or I don't know, I think he's on the spectrum. One of the two is on the spectrum, but his mother is like, boy, you gotta get a wife. So she goes all the way, I think she goes to Thailand or something, and she goes and finds him a bride. It was a cleaner at one of those hotels that she was interviewing brides for, and she was watching all these girls come into the bathroom crying. She couldn't understand what was going on, and the mother also came in, and the mother was like, you are the perfect candidate for my son. I will get you plane tickets, you'll go. Meanwhile, Isma is a child, and her mother and her grandmother's like, you go to America, you seduce him, and you go and make this huge life in America. And she tries to seduce him, and it is also steamy and just like wholesome, and just the two of them like being these two different people but really starting to fall in love with each other. And because when you're on the spectrum, or when you're autism, you really can't express your feelings the way we would express our feelings, and so Kai found it very difficult to distinguish what love is. But then Stella is like, if you don't love me, why should I still be here? At the end of the day, even though she did come for one purpose, she still wants to strive for more. She wants to educate herself, she wants to bring her child here and give her child a better life. So again, just all the good feels, steamy, sexy. I'm sure by now you heard about Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is the first book I read by her. This is an interesting concept because the author writes this novel based on everyone's thoughts on how these events or situations played out. There might be a situation where they were touring together at a specific, I don't know, venue, and a situation occurred, but everyone had a different story to say how that whole situation played out. And I thought it was very fascinating to have a storyline like that, because I often tell stories in the way I saw it, and I assumed everyone saw it that way, but meanwhile, you know, Courtney saw it as different. It's like, oh no, that's not what happened. Like, this is how the story had gone. However, it wasn't a 5-story view for me, just because it started to get very confusing, and it started to be very, very long, because you have Daisy Jones, you have the band, you have Camilla, who is one of the wives of the band members. So it is about what a band is like in the 60s, and how they navigate with drugs and alcohol and fans and catching feelings for like your band members. But overall, I really enjoyed this Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. Now, I have not read The Hurt You Give, but I watched the movie, kind of had an idea of like who Angie Thomas is, and so I decided to read Concrete Rose. This is the book you need to read first, then The Hurt You Give, because this talks about Maverick's life before they have their daughter. It navigates like what it's like to grow up in like the hood or garden, surrounded by like drugs and gangsterism, and then having to deal with the fact that you're now a teenage father, and you are also the child of like a prominent gang member who is sitting in jail. And so you're watching how not only are you now having to grow up as a teenage father, but you're now also having to watch how your friends and family are being shot because of, you know, drugs. I really enjoyed this book just because I really like Angie Thomas's writing, and it is definitely a YA book. So if this is your cup of tea, definitely purchase it. The Regulars by Georgia Clark. I had no idea what this book was about. I purchased it just because the cover is so stunning. This is probably by far the worst book I read this year amongst a few others, but it is about these 3 women who are all have their own issues in life. So Krista gets let down by a casting that she was supposed to attend, but she was late for it, and she bumps into someone that she knew, and she gives her this like purple potion, and she says, oh, this purple potion will make you into like this beautiful person, and she changes into like someone who's like desirable and it's like sex appeal, and her 2 friends takes it as well. But what I did not like about the book was that I didn't say like what was the reason for the purple potion. I didn't give a lot of information about the context of it, like why did it start, like what exactly is it. They end up doing the things that they want to do, but they wanted to do in general, but they sort of like lose their way. So I don't recommend this book whatsoever. On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, so I read another book of her, but this is not part of a sequel. And it's about Brie, and Brie wants to be like this amazing rapper, but she is living in poverty, not poverty, but this mother loses her job. Her aunt is a drug dealer, but her aunt also a manager. It is like so bizarre, but they're all trying to keep her out of like the gang space. Her father was, because he passed on, was also like this really big rapper, so everyone calls her like a little, what do you want to call it, call her little D or little Brie or something like that, based on her father. She wants to be her own person, but they keep hitting her with the reality that, oh, she's the daughter of her father. Everyone is expecting her to be like this typical rapper, like how she should be getting there, but she doesn't want to, but then she ends up being exactly what the people is expecting of her. I really enjoyed it. It's quite a thick book, it's almost like 500 pages, but again, it's a nice YA contemporary book that is very quick to read. Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ning, and I read Little Flies Everywhere, so of course I didn't get her other book, and this is told by the story of Lydia, and Lydia is dead. That's how they start the first page, like she's dead, and they are trying to understand and unravel like what made her decide to, she didn't really commit suicide, but it was kind of there. And so it talks about like their family, and Lydia's the middle child, so there's an older brother and then there's a younger child as well, but her mother is white and her father is Chinese, so she's like American Chinese. The mother had aspirations and dreams, and she wanted to be, I think she wanted to be a doctor. Because of life she just couldn't, so she threw all her dreams upon Lydia. She was basically trying to live her life through Lydia. And the same with the father. The father was teased because he came to America, and he was teased as a Chinese boy. He wasn't popular, and he was trying to make Lydia also in that aspect. It really talks about what it's like to live in the shadow of your parents, and then you have the fact that they are deal with like racism and cultural differences. Really such a brilliant book. I really love Celeste's writing style. It is something that I always enjoy when I read her books, and she's just got a sharp mind. I don't know how she comes up with these stories, but I really enjoyed it. So this is a sequel, and this is Call Me By Your Name, and this is Find Me. I actually bought this book first, and then when I read the back I was like, oh crap, I need to read this. The author Andre Asherman, I think I say it, 5 out of 5 for this book. This was so good. It talks about Elio and Oliver's relationship. Elio is like 18, but Oliver is 10 or so years his senior, and they fall in love in Italy. They're both into literature. Every summer they open their house to aspire literature students or people in that arena or industry. Elio, he ends up falling in love with Oliver and vice versa, and so it is just like this beautiful, I've never read a book that's so poetically beautifully written other than With the Crawdads Sing, but I felt every emotion of all of the scenes, especially the scene, if you read this book you know what I'm talking about, with the peach. It was hectic. I felt all the emotions and what they were embodying, what they were going through, and what it's like to have a gay relationship. Do yourself a favor and buy this book. But now we need to talk about the second book, which was called Find Me. Don't buy this book, because I was like, oh, what they're gonna tell us about like what's happening now with the relationship, and it did not do that. So the book is written in 3 parts. The first part I was like, who the hell is this person? Meanwhile, it was Elio's father, and I was like, this dude was not even featured in the first book, like he was hardly featured. So why are we having like 80 pages dedicated to him and his life in this relationship? Then the second half was about Elio, and it made sense because it was 20 years later and he was 18. So it was honestly great to read about his life and how he's navigating it now without Oliver. And the third part was about Oliver, but it sucked so bad. I didn't even know what was going on. Like honestly, other than Elio's section and like the last 10 pages of the book, that was it. That was all I enjoyed about the book. I was like, don't get Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Laughton. And this is the first book I have read by her. The book that I keep seeing by her is The Unhoneymooners, and I've yet to read it. It is about these two kids, Sam and Tate. They fall in love while being in London with their grandparents. Like cute love. It's like an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old in London under the stars, experiencing a different country together. And she has a secret. So she is the daughter of like a famous person, but nobody knows. She decides to tell him the secret. And next thing you know, the paparazzi descends on her and her grandmother in this hotel, and she knows for sure that Tate had blabbed to the paparazzi or to the media that, you know, she's his daughter, this famous actor. That's kind of the nice part of it, because once the paparazzi finds out and her life is turned upside down, it goes back to 20 years later, and then it goes downhill from there. 2/3 of the book was about the actual script. Like, I don't know if you can see, like this is what 2/3 of the book ended up being, like the script of the movie that she's playing in. Okay, so I read 2 books by Emma Lord, Tweet Cute and You Have a Match. So I'm gonna talk about Tweet Cute first. I loved it. This is a real enemies to lovers kind of book. It is about Pepper and Jack and his twin brother. I don't know what his name is, I can't remember. Their family owns like this small cafe or bakery, or I can't remember, something like that. The brothers are using social media to expose the little shop to get more traffic in, and Pepper's parents, but they divorced, they own this big corporation, and Pepper is also doing their social media for them. The two of them don't know what the family's doing, but this corporation is doing like a similar sandwich, and it's basically the same recipe as the small cafe. So they're both tweeting each other, going back and forth, but I don't know that it's the two of them. But Jack actually likes Pepper. It's such a cute, funny, hilarious, and I like that Emma Lord incorporates technology, relevant and relatable, because we're living in the social media era, and so it makes so much sense to like talk about Twitter, like social media platforms and what it can do, and you don't know who's the person behind that Twitter account. So yeah, I thought I really enjoyed this one. You Have a Match, which again incorporates technology. So it's about DNA. Abby, she and her friends, they decided to do a DNA test because her one friend is adopted, so he wants to know who is his adopted parents. And so the 2 other friends, Abby and the other girl, they end up doing it as well. And as the DNA results come back, she finds out she has a biological sister, because this biological sister knew that she was adopted, so she had put already on the platform, you know, like her information. And so Abby ended up being a hit. She also finds out that her sister is like this really popular influencer, and also her friend who suggested them do the DNA, they all go to camp together, so they all know each other. And so she ends up meeting her and says, okay, let's try and figure out what is really going on. How did this come about? Like, how did you become adopted? I understand, my parents are lawyers, like this makes no sense. So they go to camp and I try to like figure out like what's going on. So that's what's called You Have a Match. I didn't enjoy this book in the way that I enjoyed Tweet Cute, but overall I really loved Emma Lord's creativity and just her writing, and she's making it so much fun and again relatable because it's keeping up with the time. Next up we have Cersei. Let me tell you, this is the first Greek mythology book I have ever read, and so I don't know much about Greek mythology in general and like the history of it, and I wish I had known that before I went into reading this book. But I loved it. I mean, it took me a minute to get into it, but I just loved Cersei, the character, trying to understand everyone's magical powers and where they stand within the hierarchy of like gods and titans. You just feel it for Cersei, who is going to now family drama, dealing with love, dealing with becoming a mother, dealing with jealousy and envy, and her exile to an island and having to live by herself. There's no way that your heart does not break into tiny pieces for Cersei, and how you are not emotionally invested in this. I highly recommend you read this book. Like, it really deserves the hype and the praise that it's getting. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is the only book I have of her, and I decided to start with this novel. I'm gonna be honest, I did not enjoy it because basically it's about Fran and Bobby, and they are like best friends, but their relationship is weird. Bobby is just, she comes off as very like entitled, and like her opinion is the only opinion that matters, and they befriend this photographer who has like a famous husband. Francis then ends up having a affair with the husband. It's a mess. It's a mess. There's also no character development. Like, they're having this affair, but the affair is going nowhere. And then the friendship with Francis and Bobby is also going nowhere because they fight. Sally Rooney is a brilliant author. The way she writes is absolutely astounding. This novel was so crap. Like I said, no character development. There was nothing that was gripping. None of the characters were interesting. Second to last book, which is called Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, and it says notes from the women white feminists forgot. I honestly believe there should be required reading for every single woman, even men, out there, and it is about feminists and white feminists in particular who kind of handpick issues that they want to talk about, and then are not even like really researched or invested in those issues that people of color go through every single day. And like, you can't also just touch on one issue. You need to talk about issues that go hand in hand, like poverty and starvation, and education plays a key role, like housing and murder. And what I loved about Mickey, she is like hood out straight, telling you how it is. Like, this is what people of color go through. These are issues that you cannot like ignore. You cannot go and activate for an issue that you don't even know about, you have no experience about, you don't know what the daily struggles are like. Highly recommend you read this book. The last book I read, well, I'm still reading other books, but the last one is Clap Me New Land by Elizabeth. It's written almost like poetry style, but it's so good. I was so shocked by this book. Like, honestly, it's so brilliantly done. Basically, it's about these two sisters who, one lives in New York, the other one lives in the Dominican Republic, but their father is living these two lives, and these two sisters don't know jack crap about one another. So the father spends one half in DC, and the other half he spends with the other daughter, but the two daughters know about each other, and he was meant to come to the to the Dominican Republic to come and spend time with the daughter there. He dies in a plane crash, basically. They are now obviously arranging the funeral, and the secrets are coming out, and you can see the different lives of what it's like to live in the Dominican Republic. There's a lot of child trafficking happening there, and so the father was paying one of these guys to leave his daughter alone, but now that the father's no longer there, there's no more money, there's like no protection, whilst the other daughter in New York doesn't have the same sort of household or situation as her sister. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Before this video becomes a very long video, I thought I'd show you the two books that I'm currently reading now. So I'm reading The Cousins. I read One of Us is Lying. I really enjoyed it. So of course, if I love a novel of a author, I will pick up their novels again. So I'm reading this. I only read 3 chapters, so I can't give you much about it. And then I am currently reading this non-fiction book, which is #Girl Boss. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, and I am loving and it's quite a quick read. You can see I'm annotating quite a few stuff because it's so good. Bear with me for her because all the books that I have is sitting on my lap. But the 2 books that I still need to read for this month is The Authenticity Project. Look how stunning this cover is. I'm going to be reading Memorial by Brian Washington. Also heard amazing things about this book. And then I just picked up this book which is called Mexican Gothic. It is a like mystery Gothic fantasy kind of book. Not the type of genres that I gravitate towards, but why not? Let me give this a go and just look at this cover. It's like gorgeous. Like how can you not pick this book up? The next one is Love and Gelato. This book has been on my list for a very long time. It literally says it was a summer of secrets, so definitely a book to read in summer. I mean, there's goings on it. Again, I bought this book on the cover and I really hope I'm not going to be disappointed, because so far a lot of the books that I bought just because of the cover I've been disappointed by. So this book is called Life and Other Happy Endings. 3 letters, 2 mistakes, 1 lost John. How cool is that? Next up is, I think this is a non-fiction book, and it's called Wine Girl by Victoria James, and it is about making it in the toxic world of fine dining. Next up I have Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds, and I actually saw this book on a booktuber, Hailey's booktube. I can't remember, but I saw it and she said she loved it, and then I saw it in the bookshop and I bought it. So that's on my list. Elsa and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. I read Anna and the French Kiss a few years ago. I know this one, and then there's Lola and the Boy Next Door. I've yet to find that novel, but yeah, this is also a romance book, so I'm very excited to read this. Next up is Red, White and Royal Blue. I've heard so many things about this quote. I actually bought this book for my birthday. Guys, we are in November. I've yet to read this book, but it's quite a read. So I'm very excited to read this one. And the last one that's on my list is The Followers, and it says, it's by Megan Angelo, and it says, when everyone is watching, you can run but you can't hide. And I took a picture of this on my bookstagram, and one of the people who follow me, she was like, when you're done, let's have a chat about this book. So I was like, it's a group page, just like, just let me know when you're done. So I don't know what to expect by that comment, but that is literally all the books. You can see I've got tons of books still behind me that I've read. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this video was super long, and I really hope that you can pick a book out of this little pile of mine to read. So bye guys.